It occurred to me over Shabbos, over a combination of factors, that what passes popularly for bitachon, while I'm sure it's all true and it's all useful, but it's not the core of what bitachon is. And I think that it makes sense for us um, to go back to like what the core might look like. Bitachon is the experience of feeling that you can do something and attributing it to the correct source. So, for example, uh, I got in the car and I drove somewhere, or I got on the bus, got off the bus, went from here, went to there, took a drink. I did activities in the course of my day that I did very naturally. That is the term that we would associate with it. I didn't even give it a second thought. And you say, oh, you mean that you feel confident regarding that? Well, I don't feel anything. I just do it with the simplicity that people do things. And I did it with the simplicity of things that I do, that I just do them. I open the fridge, I close the fridge, I for each person, there are things that he can just think of. Here, you turned on your computer or you dialed in, and I can do that. So the place where bitachon needs to be installed is where you feel confident, really confident to the point where I don't even think about it. I wouldn't want you right now to start thinking about whether the roof or the ceiling over your head is going to fall in. I don't think that would be very useful to start worrying about whether the ceiling is going to fall in. But why don't you worry about the fact that the ceiling is going to fall in? What gives you that sense of confidence? So your first step would be, well, how often do you hear about ceilings falling in? I mean, ceilings don't just collapse. Then you hear about somebody who built a chasana hall and made it out of cardboard. So, wow. But and then a brief moment later, you reassure yourself that this ceiling was not made out of cardboard. And so I'm not concerned about it. So you go back to having a simple confidence that the ceiling will stay up. Cause of that, I guess, is that you assume that the engineers were not idiots. And when they poured the cement or made the roof, they knew what they were doing. And statistically, it's not something that I worry about. I don't worry about the ceiling falling in. It is there that you're meant to install HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where you have no problem, where everything is fine. That's where you're meant to install HaKadosh Baruch Hu, where you might install the engineer, or I don't just think about it because it's statistically how often do buildings collapse and how often do ceilings fall in. So you're supposed to install HaKadosh Baruch Hu as being the reliable one who brought the materials, who gives the materials their capacity to hold together and to cling to those metal bars that are in the reinforcement. And it is he who provides the roof over my head, using, of course, whatever materials, whatever engineers. He sent those engineers. He gave them the ability to design a roof that I don't have to worry about. So you're installing Hashem in the place not where there's a problem, and now I need to turn to Hashem to ask him to bail me out, which is of course true and wonderful, but it's not where bitachon starts. And bitachon is not just, well, let me say thank you for the little things in my life that do go well. You say thank you for for the flowers and the sunrise which again is all very true and all very useful. But the experience of bitachon is where the cause and the predictable nature of the things that in my life that I don't give a second thought to, which are millions and millions of things. Right now, for example, if you would assume that your refrigerator works, well, why should you assume that your refrigerator works? Well, because it did work, and it does work, and presumably it will work. Haya, hoveh, v'yiyeh. Hu heitiv, hu meitiv, hu yetiv. Look what just happened. We just switched it over to give that reliability back to Hashem. So it's true. The refrigerator was working. It is working. And presumably it will be working because Hashem. And where we would put our reliability on the fact that we have a good, reliable refrigerator, we are installing bitachon in knowing that that's where Hashem is. And of course, there's hundreds of billions of such things, so there's no way that you could enumerate. I'm going to install Hashem in the fact that the windows don't fly in, that the fact that the building is resistant to wind, to the fact that I'm breathing. There's no way you would lose track of everything. You certainly wouldn't be present in the moment of whatever interaction you're having. But bitachon is going to the place where you are batuach and installing Hashem instead of whatever it is that you are boteach in. So, for example, you say, I sat down right here. I sat down, I picked up the phone, or I turned on my computer, or however you connected. I just did that. Oh, so you are boteach in whatever it is that got you there. How do you know that you're boteach? Because you don't give it a second thought. It is the fact that you don't give it a second thought that means that you are at ease. You just sat down and you dialed the phone, or you turned on the computer, or you started whatever it was that you were doing. The fact that you could sit down. So you're not supposed to always need for it to go wrong in order to recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there. Unfortunately, that's what has happened in our modern world. There are so many things that we take for granted, and taking for granted means that we don't give it a second thought. And we're not supposed to give it a second thought. It's supposed to be part of the ongoing, we call it the basal continuum, the ongoing stream and flow of Hashem takes care of me. He always did, he does, he will. And so the fact that he has to always interrupt us and say, wait a second, I'm taking care of you, has become the focus in the sense of, oh, I need to turn to Hashem to take care of me. That's not what the purpose of something going wrong is. It's not that I need to turn to Hashem to take care of me, which of course is true. But the point of bitachon is to be able to go back and say, so everything is him. He gave me a body that I could sit down. Do I need to have back trouble in order to acknowledge My body, well, if I have back trouble, then it's no longer in the area of bitachon anymore. Now it's in the area of unsure. Well, I need to strengthen my bitachon. Well, if you want to strengthen your bitachon, go back to where the story began, which was where you just were confident. In other words, at the point where something is now uneasy, now I'm not so sure how it's all going to come out, that was Hashem stepping in and imposing or forcing us to pause and take notice of his involvement. But the fact is that there are things that we do that we're completely boteach in. In fact, we get annoyed if they wouldn't work. We don't even know what to do with ourselves quite if those things don't work. So those are reminders to go back to where the refrigerator, not just that the refrigerator was working, it was that I had no question. I had no qualms. I had no concerns. I was completely batuach. In what was I batuach? I was batuach in, well, the refrigerator was working. Why shouldn't it be working? And the answer is the refrigerator was working because Hashem, through all the process of the engineering, etc., that he is involved with, it was working. It is working. It will be working. That's all the reliability of Hashem. And being batuach, but not being batuach in Hashem, is where the problem starts. It's that we go through much of our day. We don't need for everything to go wrong in order to be a boteach. We're being boteach all the time. You open up the bag in the supermarket and you put things in. You're boteach, unless it's exceptional. You're boteach that the bag will hold whatever it was that you put into it. Wait a second. That's where you need to install Hashem. That's where Hashem needs to be. It enter into my consciousness. When I'm being boteach. Now, you can't think about those things individually. You'd go nuts. And so it needs to be installed in the way that we think about nature. It just is. And that sense that Hashem is always looking after millions and billions of things that are going on in my life that reduce the need to continually get these reminders about Hashem's involvement. Hashem has always fed me. Hashem does feed me. Hashem always will feed me. But you see people are sometimes going hungry. That's he decided to like wave a flag and say, wait a second, please notice what's going on. But of course, if he invited me to his palace, the king invited me to his palace, then he provided food for me to be there. How could it be otherwise? No sein lechem lechol basar ki leolam chazdo. Uvtuvo hagadol tamid lo chasar lanu v'yal yechsar lanu. That's not a tefillah, a request that we should not be lacking food. It's a statement of bitachon. Don't worry about it. Didn't worry about the food that I had yesterday. I don't worry about the food that I have today. I'm not worried about the food that I have tomorrow, but not because I have money in the bank or because there's a store nearby. Those are all ways that Hashem is organizing and arranging, but it's not by any means the only way that he could arrange for me to have something to eat. He invited me to his palace, so of course I'm going to have something to eat. So what we're looking to do is not so much the emphasis on what could go wrong, what has gone wrong, what needs to be corrected. It's going back to installing Hashem at that earlier spot. And I just want to notice, if you want to have like sort of exhibit A for this, the Chovos HaLevavos goes through 7 things that a person needs to do and to shift his reliance on Hashem, to shift his reliance from whatever it was that he was relying on before. And by relying, we mean at ease, not concerned, just part of the background, just something I take for granted, something that's working. We to shift that over to Hashem. The The first item that he lists is that we need to know that Hashem loves us more than anyone loves us. I'm going to skip a little half a line, which I think most people skip, and he gives a proof text. What's the pasuk that supports that? Now, if you were looking for a pasuk that says that Hashem loves us, would you have a problem coming up with a pasuk? Let's say you don't want to go to Tehillim, Tov Hashem lakol v'racham avakol masa. You don't want to go to Tehillim. You want to just stay in the psukim, in the Chumash. Ki ahevcha Hashem elokecha. There's constant psukim to that effect. What does he say? He uses a pasuk in Dvarim with regard to a rather unusual, if ever, case of an ira nidachas, and it says, "V'nosan lecha rachamim v'richamcha v'hirbecha." He'll give you compassion and have compassion on you. What? Why is that the pasuk? The answer is because the Chovos HaLevavos is not coming to prove that Hashem loves you. The Chovos HaLevavos is saying you probably feel, or certainly many people do, if they not should, feel good about the fact that there are people in their lives who love them. I feel a certain assurance. I take it for granted. There are people in my life who love me. And that's a very good feeling, very positive feeling. Says the Chovos HaLevavos, V'chol rachamim v'chemla shehiyu mizulaso alav. All of those feelings, those nice feelings, kulam hein merachmei hakel v'chemlaso. They're all from Hashem. The things that you feel good about. So you feel okay. I feel okay in this area because there are people who love me. Where's Hashem in that equation? Well, I don't know. People love me. So that's where Bitachon steps in. That's where you need to know that Hashem put in their hearts to love you. That's the exhibit A of where you're supposed to install Bitachon. It's when something is fine. It's good. I'm very pleased. There are people in my life who love me. You must know that that's because Hashem put that in their hearts. And interestingly, in the Makos, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends Moshe to redeem Klal Yisrael, so he's going to turn every aspect of nature upside down. Every aspect. There's not a thing that you'll be able to say, this just happens. Everything is the Ratzon Hashem because he turns everything upside down. And what does he insist that we remember? V'nosati eschein ha'am hazeh be'einei Mitzrayim. I'm going to cause Mitzrayim to love you. Why is that so important? Why is it so important? Hashem says, I'm going to cause Mitzrayim to love you. Because of number one in the Chovos HaLevavos. You need to know that every love that you have, every love that comes your way, every positive feeling that comes your way from anyone in your world who cares about you, you should know I did that. Be boteach in me, not in the fact that people love you. Of course, you are boteach in the fact that people love you because it's a steady stream of caring and love. It's wonderful. But if you rely on it as that being the source, then you get into trouble because now you have something going on in your life that you're not attributing to Hashem. And that's where you can get in trouble. And therefore, part of the makos, part of turning everything upside down has to be to tell Moshe, tell the people to notice that I'm going to cause the Mitzrim, after you've decimated every part of their world, they're going to love you. That's the take-home lesson that you're going to need to have. That the idea of going back to where you are at peace, where it's good, where it's nice. I can get up. So most people would say, okay, so I'll say Baruch Hashem, I can get up. Baruch Hashem, I can get up as opposed to not being able to get up, or Baruch Hashem, I can get up and He's installed in the part of my being that is I can get up. Who hativ, who meitiv, who yetiv. It's a given. We're not getting into the question of will he bring me benefit A or B. I don't know if benefit A or B is good for me. That's not the issue. The issue is that the same way that I wasn't worried about what I was going to eat yesterday, I'm not worried about what I'm going to eat today or tomorrow. You see, yeah, but some people are food insecure. They don't know what they're going to eat tomorrow. That's him stepping in to remind us that this is what he does and that he's taking care of us on levels that we have no way of fathoming. We can't get our head around all of the different ways that Hashem is taking care of us. And if you just try to replace nature or natural, or it's something I don't even think about, if you replace that with, wow, how reliable is Hashem, then you'll start realizing that most things in your life are going on because Hashem is doing it, not just most, it's everything. Everything in your life is exactly the same as you're being able to look up in an almanac as to when the sun is going to rise in 200 days from now. Exactly to the second. Why? Because he's reliable. Because he's reliable, that's how I can know that the sun is going to rise at a certain time in 200 days. Well, that's exactly what's going on in all of the things of our lives that we don't have to think about. That I can speak and that I can wave my hands and make and gesticulate and I can all of those things. He's the cause for that. She said, and he gave me this body. He gave me these tools. And he also gave us Mitzrayim to be the source of our wealth. That's what he did. He built that into history so that Mitzrayim would be a source of our wealth. And therefore, before you leave Mitzrayim, make sure you take wealth with you. Says the Medrash, it says in the Pasuk, V'haya kiselechun lo selchu rekam, zu mitzvahs lo saseh. It's a lav. I'm not allowed to say I'm going to leave Mitzrayim without wealth. Because Hashem, that's how Hashem gave you wealth. So now you need to operate with that as you're given. Everything is Hashem. And so installing Hashem where we would think of or not think of, where things are just natural, things are given, that's where we're installing Hashem so that we're not reliant on the thing that works. We're reliant on He who makes it all work, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So it's a big job. It's not a job that we can simply get our heads around, but it's a job that is the avoda of bitachon. And the error of putting bitachon only in the things that are not working or in hoping that something will work is not going to get us where we need to be, which is a place of roga and simcha, of being at ease and with joy in our relationship with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu.